Picture this. A future Pacific conflict breaks out near Taiwan. U.S. carrier groups rush into position. But compared to 10 years ago, the fleet suddenly has fewer long-range missiles, fewer missile defense platforms, and less ability to sustain massive strikes. That scenario is no longer hypothetical. According to defense reporting, the retirement of the Ticonderoga cruisers could remove more than 1,200 missile cells from the U.S. fleet. And replacing that capability is proving far harder than the Pentagon expected. The Ticonderoga-class cruiser was never just another warship. These ships were floating missile arsenals. For decades, they protected aircraft carriers, intercepted ballistic missile threats, and delivered precision strike power around the world. The ships became central to America's post-Cold War naval dominance. At one point, 27 cruisers served in the class. But the fleet has shrunk dramatically, and only a handful remain active today. The problem is not simply aging ships. The real issue is that the Navy canceled earlier cruiser replacement plans years ago, and newer destroyers do not fully compensate for the missile capacity being lost. That means America may soon have a smaller fleet that also carries less firepower. And in modern warfare, missile volume matters enormously. Military planners increasingly believe future wars, especially against a near-peer adversary like China, would involve massive missile exchanges in the opening days. Whoever runs out of missiles first could lose strategic momentum. That's why the number 1,200 missile cells has become such a major talking point in naval circles. Each retiring cruiser removes dozens upon dozens of launch cells from the fleet. Multiply that across the retiring ships, then add the eventual retirement of the Ohio-class guided missile submarines, and the Navy faces a potentially serious strike capacity gap. And yes, China is watching closely. China has expanded its Navy at a staggering pace, building warships faster than the U.S. in recent years. Meanwhile, Russia continues investing heavily in hypersonic missiles and submarine warfare. That does not mean America is suddenly weak. The U.S. Navy is still arguably the most capable naval force on Earth. But capability gaps matter when rivals are accelerating while America restructures its fleet. Now let's talk about another major concern.
The Navy's Ohio-class submarines. The Ohio-class submarine has been one of the most powerful submarine classes ever built. Some converted versions can carry massive numbers of Tomahawk cruise missiles. But these submarines are aging too. That's why the Chief of Naval Operations, often called the CNO, recently discussed new strategies to extend the service life of some nuclear deterrent submarines while replacement programs continue developing. The concern is obvious. America cannot afford a major capability gap in its nuclear deterrent fleet while also shrinking conventional missile capacity. Because once ships retire, replacing them is not fast. Warships take years to design and build. Submarines can take even longer. Here's my opinion. I don't think the biggest danger is that the U.S. Navy is becoming weak. That narrative is exaggerated. The real danger is strategic overconfidence. For years, America operated under the assumption that it had unlimited industrial superiority. But modern naval warfare is exposing a difficult reality. Shipbuilding speed, maintenance costs, and missile production capacity now matter just as much as advanced technology. And right now, America's defense industrial base is under pressure. China can produce ships rapidly. The U.S. still builds incredibly advanced vessels, but often at slower speeds and enormous cost. That imbalance could become critical during a prolonged conflict. Another issue is timing. The Navy is retiring old ships before enough replacements are operational at scale. That creates what analysts call a capability valley, a dangerous period where the old fleet disappears faster than the new fleet arrives. That is exactly why these retirements are causing alarm. To be fair, Navy leadership argues many of these ships are simply too expensive to maintain. Some cruisers are over 30 years old. Maintenance costs rise dramatically as ships age, and modernization programs have faced delays and budget overruns. The Navy also points out that newer systems, destroyers, unmanned technologies, and future programs like DDG-X are supposed to create a more advanced force in the long run. In fact, the Navy recently extended the service life of 3 Ticonderoga cruisers through 2029 after major upgrades. So this is not a simple story of decline. It's a story of transition. But transitions in military history can be extremely risky. The U.S. Navy losing 13 ships is important. But the deeper story is what those retirements reveal: a growing struggle between aging Cold War-era power and the uncertain future of next-generation naval warfare. America is trying to modernize while simultaneously deterring rivals that are expanding rapidly. And if that transition goes badly, the consequences could reshape global power for decades. The question is no longer whether the Navy can build advanced ships. The question is whether it can replace lost firepower fast enough before crisis erupts. And that is why military planners around the world are watching very carefully.